Hello and welcome back to the Bright Light Wellness YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I want to talk about something of special interest of mine, and this is because this is a condition that quote unquote I've been diagnosed with or I've had to deal with myself. So I really want to talk about the root causes of pelvic pain, interstitial cystitis, endometriosis, like all of these things. Like, what is the root cause of these issues in the body? And as someone who's struggled with these challenges, I mean, I literally had bladder infections chronically since I was 5 years old, which coupled with chronic yeast infections. And I've taken a lot of medications and suppressive therapies to combat this. However, I will tell you right now, that is never going to be the solution. And in fact, will lead to more harm than good. Taking antibiotics and suppressing symptoms with suppressive therapies tends to, or does, lead to deeper pathology and actually damages our mitochondria in that area specifically. So a lot of people will tout that they know the root cause of IC. And I think it runs they're going with triggers of IC. Those are triggers that they're talking about that can trigger flares and trigger symptoms, but I don't think they're understanding what root cause really means. Because I'm sorry to say, but mold or Lyme or chronic infections or nervous system dysregulation or foods that you are eating, oxalates and histamine foods, are absolutely 1,000,000% not, and I say this with utmost confidence, not your root cause of why you have IC. Okay. Those are triggers, right? You can eat a high oxalate food and it may trigger you, or you can eat a high histamine food and it may trigger your symptoms. Or you could put yourself in a nervous system dysregulation state, and this may trigger symptoms. You can be exposed to mold, and this may trigger symptoms. You may exposed to a injection, a medical procedure in the arm, and this may trigger symptoms like heavy metal issues and whatnot. But these are not root cause. These are just environmental triggers that are turning things to be more expressed, okay? Because you have an energetic weakness or susceptibility in that area. I've had bladder issues, like again, since I was 5 years old. So this obviously is a genetic weakness. And I don't mean genetic as far as like this is something that you can't fix, okay? I mean like something in my family's lineage, likely on my mother's side, right? Because I'm going to tell you what the root cause is in a minute, but we get our mitochondria from our mother, okay? And our mother's mother and mother's mother. So it's passed down, right, through generation to generation. And things that maybe have happened to my mother or my grandmother cause these kind of like energetic imbalances or blockages or weaknesses or susceptibility. I would say weaknesses in these areas, okay, to cause you to have what I would call like energetic blockages or weaker susceptibility in this area of the body. And that really, what it comes down to is that the mitochondria in that area are weak, which makes them susceptible. The root cause of your pelvic pain, your pelvic floor dysfunction, your IC, your endo, your pelvic issues is at the root mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, what's causing that mitochondrial dysfunction can be multifactorial and usually is multifactorial. But the point is that we have to make you less susceptible so you don't keep getting chronic infections. So your body, you have to strengthen your vital force, your immune system, so you don't have these things happen again. That's what I need you to understand. And we have to improve your mitochondria function, which will then improve your cellular energy, your cellular hydration, which I'm going to talk about, and your cellular repair mechanisms. Because if you don't actually improve these things, you will always remain susceptible and a weak host to different pathogens to take uphold. And they're going to take uphold in the areas where you are susceptible, AKA where your mitochondria are weak. For me, that was my bladder. That was my pelvis. That's my weak area. And there are likely some subconscious programming and some energetic reasons for that I can explain a little bit more into as well. But to me, these pathogens, leaky gut, leaky bladder, like these are not your root causes. The food is not your root cause. They might trigger it, but removing foods forever is never a solution and is only like putting a band-aid on it. Like it's almost like, okay, I'm just not going to eat the triggers, right? Like, and then like, that's not living. You can't go through life, be like, oh, I'm just never going to eat these high oxalate foods again. I'm never going to eat these high histamine foods again. Like and I'm telling you right now, I have opened my diet so much since I've been doing the practices that I'm going to share. My point is that that's never going to actually heal you. If you're like, oh, it's nervous system dysregulation, that's what the problem is, or pelvic floor dysfunction, right? That's what the problem is. And yes, there can be structural or mechanical things at play here that maybe need to be addressed sometimes. But my point is that if you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to avoid all these foods, or I'm going to like, make sure my nervous system is always regulated. Like a normal nervous system is going to come in and out of regulation. That is normal. I need to come out and say this right now because I don't think that everybody talking about nervous system dysregulation all the time, they're like, oh, like it's like, what? So we should never like have like times where we feel stressed? Of course, but it's about building stress resilience and a nervous system that can bounce back from those stressors quickly, right? But that doesn't mean you're never going to encounter stressors in your life and you can just completely avoid it and just always be like meditating and regulating our nervous system. Like that's not living, that's not life, that's not normal, right? So like let's just talk about it, because in my opinion, as someone who has, and I feel like I can speak on this because I'm someone who's lived it, the root cause is mitochondrial dysfunction and lack of what we call exclusion zone water. So your mitochondria, when they are weak in an area, they're not going to produce enough of this special exclusion zone water. Okay, this water is a gel-like crystalline substance that will line all of your cells and creates two things: a battery, right, which makes you have more cellular energy, so your cells are running more efficiently and can repair and do all the work that the cell needs to do. And then it also is a barrier. Exclusion zone water is a barrier. And why this is so important is because it excludes things from entering the cell. This includes toxins from entering the cell. So your bacteria, your mold, your viruses, your heavy metals, right? Your Lyme disease, like all these things cannot enter the cell if you have adequate exclusion zone water. And how you have adequate exclusion zone water is your mitochondria functioning optimally. Your mitochondria, when they are dysfunctional, do not produce enough of this exclusion zone water, right? So we have poor mitochondria, we have less repair, we have less cellular hydration. The mitochondria produce exclusion zone water at step 4. If this is lacking, your barriers are weak and you are going to allow things and continue to be susceptible to things entering into that area. Now, why the bladder or pelvis or reproductive organs are susceptible to you for you is that can be different. Okay, this is probably linked to either trauma, okay, trauma that happened to you or your mother or your grandmother. And I'm talking like these big shocks and big traumas that kind of affect this more sacral region of our body. So this is like abuse, sexual abuse. It also could be grief. It also could be a rape. It could be like these kinds of things, right? Also, another one is suppressed anger. Suppressed anger is huge for people who have things like interstitial cystitis. They're just stuffing it all inside. And when you repress your anger or your emotions, they're going to express somewhere in the body. And a lot of times they express, okay, in the bladder. That anger, that rage, think about like an angry bladder, right? Like a painful bladder syndrome is like an angry bladder. It is expressing in that. And usually what I see as a homeopath is people who have this kind of suppressed anger, who are unable to stand up to the person who they are really angry at. So they stay weak, meek, quiet, and don't say anything, and they don't express that anger, and it bottles up inside and it takes hold in the bladder. That is a very common reason. And now when that happens, the mitochondria in that area are going to become very weak, right? Because you're stuffing everything inside and it's causing cellular damage. And mitochondria are environmental sensors in all ways. They sense the environment to the lights that you're sitting under, whether you're inside, whether you're outside, the foods that you eat, whether they're seasonal or local or processed and packaged, like all of these things the mitochondria sense. They also sense your emotions and they feel them. And these emotions hold a charge. Okay. A positive charge is going to create a negative effect in the body, actually. And a negative charge is going to create a positive effect in the body. You're like a battery. I know this is a lot of information that I'm throwing at you, but I really want to just share all this. Like, for example, what I mean is that when you express emotions of love and joy, this actually creates a net negative charge in the body, which charges, ready, our mitochondria and our exclusion zone water. And when you're expressing like despair and anger, okay, all the time, not even expressing, but repressing, this creates a positive charge, which then creates a disease in the body. Okay. It's almost like this acidity versus alkaline story, right? Like alkaline is more negatively charged, acidity is more positively charged. And I find, I'm going to link this back to food. Like one of the first things they do if you have IC is they're like, oh, and IC is interstitial cystitis, by the way. Okay. It's like a chronic bladder infection. One of the things that they'll say is, oh, you should limit acidic foods, right? And this is because they're trying to balance this acidity in your body because you're too acidic, because your body doesn't have enough energy to run its mitochondria and to support cellular function. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. So, all right, I'm just making sure I've touched on a few things. Another cause of IC people will say is like pelvic floor dysfunction, which again, that is also lack of exclusion zone water and cellular dehydration. It also could be stored energy of trauma in the body as well. So like if you had a rape or an abuse or an abortion, or if you felt abandoned or like those kinds of things, this can be stored because our exclusion zone water actually holds memory and energy, right? So it'll hold the trauma in a certain space in the body, okay? And it's gonna choose that based on where you are susceptible to. Okay, so we need to focus on healing the mitochondria, okay? Now I want to say a little bit more about the food situation. Now, lack of exclusion zone water, which is if you have mitochondrial dysfunction, you have a lack of exclusion zone water, your cells are chronically dehydrated. This leads to histamine issues, which is very common with people who have interstitial cystitis. They are chronically dehydrated, and I don't mean that they're not drinking enough water, because a lot of them will drink buckets of water to like flush things out, or some of them will actually stop drinking water because they think that, this is going to help them pee less or urinate less. But this really has nothing to do with the amount of water you're drinking. I mean, water is important. You want to drink clean water. You want to have water that's mineral rich, because then the body is able to hold on to that water more efficiently. But what I mean by cellular dehydration is that your mitochondria at step 4 are not making enough exclusion zone water. Remember, which is our battery, creates our energy, our cellular energy, and that barrier that doesn't allow toxins in. And then when that's lacking, you are more sensitive to histamine issues and causes more histamine sensitivity. And that is why a lot of people these people are sensitive to histamines. Now, 2 things that I bet you had no idea affect your level of histamine is artificial lights, like your LEDs, your screens, your fluorescents, and non-native EMFs. Both of these things, non-native EMFs, your wearables, your smartwatch, your earbuds, the time you spend on your computer. My computer is on Ethernet, so it's no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, and my screen is red. And that is because I am very aware that artificial lights and non-native electromagnetic frequencies, not native frequencies, okay, using a microwave, sitting inside an office all day, these things, this kind of indoor living drives mitochondrial dysfunction and inhibits exclusion zone water, okay? So your body will make less exclusion zone water when surrounded by non-native EMFs and artificial lights. And guess when your body makes more exclusion zone water? When you're outside grounded with your feet in the ground and the sunlight is touching your skin. These are the solutions, okay? We need to stay away and mitigate artificial light and non-native EMFs and be outside more. I can't wait to get outside. As soon as this video is off, I am getting back out for a little bit. This is how we mitigate those things, okay? So Dr. Gerald Pollack showed in his lab that non-native EMFs deplete exclusion zone water by 15 to 20%, and artificial light does it as well, okay? Also, artificial light at night specifically hinders your body's or suppresses your body's ability to make and release melatonin, not really make it, but release melatonin. It will suppress it, which will have you not healing while you are sleeping at night. So the solution is not to take more medications, some pain pills to manage this. The solution is not to go on a special diet and never eat your favorite foods again. The solution is not to, tippy toe your nervous system for the rest of your life. It's not to, I don't even know, like do all these protocols that are or kill detoxes, which those drive me the most insane because they don't actually work and you will just remain susceptible. The solution is not to continue to take antibiotics for the rest of your life, because when you take that, that actually means anti-life. Anti-life means kill your mitochondria. You are actually destroying the mitochondria in that area. And I will tell you right now, suppression of UTIs leads to depression most often. So the more you keep suppressing them, the more you will have deeper pathology in the body. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit passionate about this because it's so huge. And then a lot of people will also say, okay, you can't have oxalate foods. Well, why do you have a problem with degrading oxalates? Number one, you're probably not eating a seasonal, local, ancestral diet. So you're overloading your body with oxalates because you think almond flour and spinach smoothies are healthy, when honestly, that is not something ancestrally that we would have done. So we're eating too much of these foods. But I still don't think that's the issue. The issue is that you've taken so many suppressive therapies and antibiotics that have now caused you to cause your microbiome not to be able to break down high oxalate foods. Like your body should be able to handle these foods, no problem, when seasonally appropriate. But when you keep putting all these medications in your system, all of a sudden your body can't break these down anymore. Your microbiome is lacking that beneficial bacteria. And no, you cannot just go take a probiotic and take that bacteria and it's going to fix it. You need to get outside. You need to be in the sunlight. You need to be engaging with the microbes in your environment and eating the local seasonal foods to support gut microbiome diversity. So, and then you also have things like these, we put, when we go to our wellness visits, I'm just going to say these things, right? And these things, okay, this is a big part of my story. I already had IC. I had a compromised mitochondria there my entire life, okay? And I had IC already, and I was in an environment that was full of non-native EMFs and artificial lights, and I had no idea how to take care of my health when it came to even what to eat or how to live. But at that time, I also put one of these things in my body. So my body was already weak and susceptible. And then I added this, right? And then what happened is this destroyed my exclusion zone water. There are actually ingredients in these things that we put in our arms because we think we need them. Okay, that actually there's ingredients in there that are known to deplete exclusion zone water. And that makes so much sense to me because as soon as I depleted that took that thing, which suppresses your immune system as well greatly. It also depleted my exclusion zone water. I had a complete histamine and mast cell reaction system dysfunction where I had chronic insomnia and chronic pain and got another bladder infection. Toxins entered the cells. The barrier is broken. The toxins can enter. So these things like antibiotics, these things we put here, any kind of suppressive therapies that we take, they suppress the immune system. So the immune system comes weaker and results in chronic disease, okay? Because the immune system is not strong enough to put up the fight. It is not strong enough to elicit the symptoms it needs to get over whatever it needs to get over, like eliciting a fever. I guarantee if you were dealing with a chronic disease that you haven't had a fever in years. And that is because the immune system cannot, unless you had it from the virus that came around, which is kind of like a whole different ballgame in 2020. But if you haven't had a fever in years, this is part of the problem. A fever is how we burn up pathology, but people with chronic disease can't get to that point because their immune system is so suppressed and so weak due to all of the suppressive therapies and injections and medications that they've used, right? The bladder also has its own microbiome and it shouldn't be completely sterile. So going after this and saying it's a chronic UTI and like going and checking your, I did these kind of testings. I did all of this. I just want to stop the madness because I know, because I've been there. That's not going to work either because you're always going to maybe have something in there. And that's like almost normal. Like the body's supposed to be able to like fight it off. Like you're supposed to have the good guys and the bad guys that fight it off. Right. It shouldn't be sterile. It should have balance is my point. And really everything affects everything within the body. And I also don't think the root cause is leaky gut either, by the way. Again, that's lack of exclusions on water and poor mitochondria function and poor lifestyle, honestly, like poor circadian rhythms, too much indoor time, not enough outdoor time, not honoring light and dark cycles, poor redox potential, which is basically you're weak because you don't have enough electrons, right? Which is my point before, is that acidity and alkaline balance, right, is when you don't gather enough electrons. And by the way, electrons are what power your mitochondria and power the electron transport chain, which is inside the mitochondria, right? If you don't have enough of that going on, you're not gathering enough, you're going to be energy deficient. Your mitochondria are going to suffer. Okay. And you are going to, wind up with disease. And how we gather electrons is, yes, we need to eat high quality, whole, real food. Hopefully it's going to be seasonal, ancestral, local, right? But we also need to be outside in sunlight. This is also how we gather energy. We have to earth. We have to put our feet on the ground. This is a daily practice. We're supposed to be connected to the earth almost 24/7, right? So like, those are other ways that we gather energy. And then there's movement, and then there's connection, which is really, really important. These also help us gather energy as well. So I hope I've kind of given you some ideas about what the real root causes of IC are, or interstitial cystitis, or pelvic floor dysfunction, or pain in these areas. Question is now, how do we fix it? Well, we have to reduce susceptibility. We have to stop chasing these microbes, these infections, these, parasites, the mold, the bacteria, the viruses. This is not root cause. You have to stop, blaming it on what you're eating. Those are just triggers. That's not real root cause. You're not really healed if you can't eat a variety of foods. Okay. That's not really being healed. If you can't ever eat tomatoes or pineapples or tomato sauce again, that's not really healed. Like, I'm sorry. Like, we should be able to eat foods that are, organic, local, and when seasonally appropriate, we should have no problem. Okay. So we have to fix our mitochondria function in this areas, okay, or in the whole body. We have to increase our energetic potential so we can reduce inflammation. This is called redox. The more energy we have, right, the more we can squelch inflammation. This is not taking a supplement protocol. We have to endogenously fix this within our body. We have to fix our circadian rhythms so our body knows what to do and when to do it. And these rhythms naturally help our bodies regulate and bring us back to homeostasis. They help our body have more cellular repair. Okay. These are all things that I teach on my podcast, The Quantum Health Connection, on this YouTube channel, Bright Light Wellness, and what I teach to my clients who I support. Okay. With one-to-one coaching, personalized healthcare plans, or just my webinars and ebooks, which are a really cost-effective way to begin learning. Okay. We have to use homeopathy because homeopathy is literally the only modality that I know, okay, besides getting you out in sunlight and earthing and fixing your circadian biology and eating whole real foods that are going to reduce inflammation in your body, because if we're eating processed and packaged foods, this is not going to work. And if we're living an indoor lifestyle, never getting outside and scrolling on our phone all night and watching Netflix and being under artificial lights, that is a block to healing. But if you're doing all of those things and you're still struggling, then we need to use homeopathy, because it's likely that the suppressive therapies that you've taken have destroyed mitochondria in that area. Okay. They've caused a block to your immune system, a block to your vital force, that are not allowing your body to heal. And homeopathy is really the only modality I know that can turn this around. And this is because it has this unique ability to strengthen your vital force, your immune system, and up level your health, so you become stronger instead of weaker. It's like taking your immune system to the gym, as one of my favorite trainers has said. You take a little bit of a stimulus and it's like the body's like, oh, I have to work on this. Okay. And then it actually goes in and removes the effects. Okay. It removes genetic predispositions. It reduces susceptibility. Okay. In the area that is weak and makes that area stronger. Okay. This is why I practice this medicine and why I'm such a big advocate for it. Not only in chronic conditions, but also in acute conditions. So if you have an acute UTI, instead of suppressing it, we can support it with homeopathy. I can't imagine what would have happened when I was 5 years old and I had a UTI and they said it was chronic, if I would have used homeopathy instead of allopathy. What my life would be like different, because I was on the antibiotics for years. Okay, I did that. I had the chronic infection and I took the antibiotics for years, and that never solved the problem. And this is why, because I see so many women struggling with this and going down this path and thinking that they're getting to the root cause by trying to kill a chronic infection, or thinking that they're going to the root cause by removing all their favorite foods, or thinking that they're going to the root cause by, doing a gut protocol or killing this and killing that. No, you need to be strengthened. We need to up level you. Okay. A supplement can't do it. I'm sorry. And homeopathy is nothing like a supplement. Its mechanism of action is 1000% different. Okay. It works nothing like a supplement. Okay. A supplement is just a band-aid. It's just maybe a nutrient that you take. This strengthens your vital force. Okay. So it's the lifestyle and it's homeopathy. Those are my two recommendations to get to the root cause of, honestly, any disease that you are struggling with, but I see as well as endo, as well as pelvic pain, any of that. Okay. And how does homeopathy get to the root cause? Well, it listens to you. I sit down with you for a 2-hour session and I understand your symptoms on the physical, mental, emotional level. And I find out those triggers, whether it was medications that you've taken, suppressive therapies, right? Whether it was abuse or rape or, the suppressed anger, these suppressed emotions, right? I'm finding that out. And then I'm giving you a substance that's like cures like, that will catalyze your immune system to remove that trigger. So that trigger is not a trigger anymore. That's the thing. We can't just avoid the triggers for our life. We have to remove the triggers. So the triggers are not an issue for us anymore. That's homeopathy. And that will it strengthens you at a mitochondrial level. It takes your electrons and it actually helps them spin more appropriately. It strengthens your exclusion zone water. It removes trauma and shock, not only from your life, but ancestrally, okay, from your mother, that was imprinted on you from your mother, from your grandmother. That is homeopathy. It is deep, deep, powerful medicine, okay? And I know my passion is shining through on this video because it can't not, because I have lived this. And I know what it feels like to feel hopeless and despair and extreme pain. And people tell you, you can just remove your bladder. and that is not a viable option and you think that's crazy, or you could just take these antidepressants, or you could just take these supplements which you take and spend all this money on, never works, or you can do this testing which you do and the protocols don't work. I've been there. I've walked this, and I've walked it for too long before I realized the truth that if I didn't strengthen me, nothing would change. It's not about killing things. It's about making you stronger. Reduce your susceptibility. That's the answer. That's the key. Make your mitochondria stronger. Reduce susceptibility. Okay, that is how you fix this. Okay, I hope I have given you some food for thought. And I don't want to discredit anyone who's trying to help people heal from this horrible, like any kind of pelvic conditions. I know how horrible these things can be. Okay, I don't want to discredit that. Okay, but I want you to understand that they're not actually getting to the root cause if you're not changing your lifestyle, if you're not changing your mindset, if you're not using a modality or a medicine that actually makes you stronger instead of weaker. Okay. And when it comes to nervous system dysregulation, aligning your circadian biology and homeopathy are extremely powerful and more powerful than most things, honestly. Not to say that we might not need to add in some body work, especially with pelvic floor dysfunction, to help those kind of like myofascial release can help remove trauma as well. Okay. And that works on a quantum energy level as well. So I am a proponent for possibly using some body work in and somatics to support the system as well. When it comes to this. So I really, really hope this was helpful. I really hope it reaches the right people who need to hear this today. It's a longer YouTube than I make usually, but I just feel it. And like I said, this does not only, it's the same thing if you said you had H. pylori. It's the same thing. It's the same thing if you told me that you had any other kind of chronic disease, any kind of chronic gut issues. I'm going to teach the same thing because the root cause of literally 99.9% of all diseases is mitochondrial dysfunction, and the susceptibility comes from your genetic predispositions. And that doesn't mean that we can't turn these genes back on in, or turn them off, or get them in the right position. Our environment signals our gene expression. Our mitochondria signal our gene expression. So this healing is always possible, okay? And if it's not a full cure, it's going to be vast improvements are possible and quality of life is possible again. So I just want to share that level of hope too. And you have to believe it. Don't you ever let any doctor or any even natural doctor or clinician tell you that this is forever, because I've also dealt with that. I've had people say, you're going to be on mast cell stabilizers for the rest of your life. There's nothing you can do. And that was a naturopathic doctor. I've had doctors tell me I have to remove my bladder. I'll be in pain forever. I've had doctors say I have to take antidepressants. I've had people tell me that if I didn't heal this by a certain time, it wouldn't work. I've had people tell me that every organ in my body was failing. Look at me now. And I didn't do their protocols. I tried. Their protocols didn't work. Okay. So I hope you heard my passion in this one, because oh man, I just had so much to say today, and I just feel like it's so important. And I just want to make sure that I got everything in my notes. I remember we're going to support the mitochondria. We're going to support cellular energy, support cellular repair, support the exclusion zone water so it can act as a battery energy, cellular energy, and a barrier against toxins. Avoid those suppressive therapies. Use homeopathy in acute situations and in chronic situations. Avoid the non-native apps and artificial lights, and I can help you on that if need be. Work on your trauma. You might need some body work as well for that. Get your circadian rhythms in balance and in line. And it's not like a little bit of time. That's like an everyday practice, especially with a chronic disease. And me with a classical homeopath, whether that's me or somebody else, to support you. Okay. I've said a lot here. I really, really hope this is supportive. Like this video, share this video, leave a comment, ask me questions, send me an email, contact@brightlightwellnesscoach. I want to know what do you want to know about. Book in a discovery call. I offer 15-minute clarity calls. Learn the information of how to set your circadian rhythm. I have the Get Your Light Right ebook and webinar. I have the How to Thrive in Winter ebook and webinar, which can be supportive. I have the Ancestrally and Seasonally Nourished recipe ebook, which probably will be out by the time that this is airing. So use these things to help you learn how to rebalance your body that way. Or just book in with me for one-to-one coaching or personalized healthcare plan, and I will support you there. Okay. Have an incredible day. Oh, and I want to say one more thing. If a food is triggering you, you should avoid it. Okay. While you're healing. I do want to say that. It doesn't mean that you can't heal to get back to eating those foods. I've had my diet expand so much where I could never eat strawberries. I couldn't eat tomatoes. Like these things have all come back into my diet when seasonally appropriate. Okay. So I don't want you to think that those things, that healing is not possible, but you do need to maybe possibly avoid triggers so you're, not in pain, because we don't want you to be in pain because that creates the fear response and all that. Okay, I gotta go. I hope this was helpful and have an incredible day, and I will talk with you soon. And like I said, questions, please drop them below. Have a good day.